In today's episode, we spoke about his journey with graduating and setting up his business, the importance of values in finding your company's purpose, and how to take your entrepreneurial journey to the next level. This is the story of Oliver Sidwell, Loughborough alumni and co-founder of Rate My Placement. Firstly, would you like to introduce yourself to all the viewers at home?
Sure. So I'm Ollie Sidwell, and I'm co-founder of ratemyplacement.co.uk, which is a student careers website to help students find placements and internships. It's something we set up at Loughborough. So I'm a Loughborough through and through. I was in Telford for 2 years. I was on committee in my second year as a stash rep.
Oh, yeah.
So the most important role on the committee, and absolutely loved it, and did a placement during my third year. That gave us the inspiration, the idea to then set up a business, which we've now been doing ever since.
And what did you do your degree in, and what did you do your placement in?
So I did geography and business management, so on joint honours. And that was optional to do a placement, but a lot of my friends were doing it. A lot of friends were doing degrees that had mandatory placement opportunities. So I got ushered along a little bit in that sense. But as soon as we started looking, we realised there was a massive gap, an opportunity. The business school, as wonderful as it is, had a genuine pin board at like outside the office, and you printed out jobs and pinned them on there. And then as a student, you go along and you look at them and take them. That was the approach. That seems so archaic. I was here like 2003 to 2007, not that old, but 20 years ago, that genuinely was the process.
Yeah.
We knew that was broken. We knew we had to make it more online, and that gave us the inspiration to do so.
And so what were the first steps you kind of thought of, like, to making it happen? Like, what did you do?
The idea was probably the first bit, in that I mentioned the first part of the idea, which was actually going through that process ourselves, and going through a process yourself gives you,
lived experience.
You're the use case. So
yeah.
It makes sense. When we were on placement, we were about 6 months in, and I keep saying we because there was 4 of us that set it up together at the time. And we all had the same experience of, it wasn't quite what we thought it was going to be, because we didn't know enough about the job and the opportunity or the place we were living or the role we were doing. There was such a lack of information. So that, coupled with the difficulty finding the placements, we knew there was actually a gap in the market. So we researched a lot. We realised there was quite a lot of graduate websites that helped students that were graduating finding jobs, but there was nothing for first and second year students looking to find work experience, year-long placements, summer internships. So we created Rate My Placement to help allow students who have done placements and internships to review their experiences. That unique insight is going to be so helpful when you're looking at a role, to understand, actually, does this job spec match with actually what students are saying? Like, is it actually going to be good? Does it suit what I'm looking for? Mm-hmm. Is the culture going to be what I'm after? What's the out of work opportunities like? What are the skills I'm going to be learning? All that stuff you cannot find on company websites.
I think that's still an ongoing thing as well. Like, I know on my placement, I was definitely culturally shocked. Yeah. And even the difference within organisations as well. Like, so like I did a placement out at like a big beauty corporate, and like one floor to another, honestly, you'd still get completely different culture. So it's definitely an interesting topic. But like, would you say your purpose has changed since when you started to now, or have you always been very set in your mission?
It's a really good question. I'd say our mission today is to inspire young people to take the first steps in their career. That is not only students at universities, but students that can't go to university or don't want to go to university, because we do an apprenticeship website at the same time. So our mission at the moment is, we just want to educate, we want to inspire, we want to help young people that are following in our footsteps take that first step into their career, because we know how hard that is. When we first set up, that wasn't necessarily the plan, because it was just a CV builder. Like, we thought this was a project to help other Loughborough students following in our footsteps. So when we got back after placement year, we won the business plan competition. That helped us create some money, or give us about 1,500 quid we won. That got us someone who could build the website, because none of us are that technical. Then we had an actual functioning website that we could share with other students at Loughborough when we left. It just so happened that as we were graduating at the same time, lots of other unis were plugging into us and saying, this is awesome, can we get our students to leave reviews? And then where it then became a commercial entity is we then got companies saying, you've got some fantastic testimonials and quotes from students that have done placements with us. Like, can we put an advert alongside that? Can we put our logo on our profile? Can we put jobs on the site? Can we send emails to students?
And it all just grew from there.
So yeah, it kind of naively became a job board with a difference, and the reviews are a massive USP that TripAdvisor, Glassdoor do so much now. They launched in exactly the same year that we did.
Wow.
Having reviews of certainly jobs online was something that no one had ever done before.
And did you ever struggle with people thinking that your idea might not be viable, or people doubting you?
100%. Yep. Some of the biggest companies in the world were very scared because they were saying, you're gonna host reviews of people who are working at our company. Like, that is scary, especially students, because they're new into work, their expectations might not be managed. So we managed to convince them, because we were the students ourselves, we've gone through that process. We said, look at this as an opportunity, because you've got students saying how wonderful it is to work for you. And by and large, placements, internships, half the students will go back as graduates.
Really? Wow.
So it's a real win-win. This company wants to show the students a good time, and the student wants to have a good time. And if both of those marry up, then hopefully you'll stay and go back as a grad, which is kind of the pipeline effect that companies are looking for.
And you touched on that. I guess what I would love to hear about how you kind of thought about grad schemes versus, and I guess taking the step from going into it from a job and being putting all of your, the step from doing both to this all in.
Yeah. So we were doing it evenings and weekends because we all graduated and had graduate jobs lined up and had to do that. We weren't making any money out of the website. We were just doing it because we loved it, and it was a bit of a passion project, and it was exciting. So it was about a year after we graduated that we'd end up working, like I say, 2 or 3 evenings a week. So you'd get back from your job, have a bit of dinner, and you'd sit in front of a laptop for 2 or 3 hours again. Weekends you'd be working occasionally. We'd meet up because we all live fairly close to each other, so you'd go around each other's house and do some stuff. And that helped us really test the model, because we knew we did it quite softly, I guess, because we had graduate jobs that were giving us some income, so we could survive.
There was no pressure.
So there's less pressure in that sense. So we were then looking at actually how do we test this model? Do we know that companies are going to spend money with us to advertise their roles because we can get students to apply to them? Are we understanding that students want to use our website? Is it helpful enough to allow them to do that? Is our traffic growing? Are we getting enough students signed up to the websites? So we were really testing our metrics, the key performance indicators we knew were going to be important, but most of all getting feedback from the market. So working with university career centres and placement offices to see how we can partner with them, how can we help them, learning from that, and then again, same with clients, what actually do they need from us?
And would you say your target, kind of your goals have changed a lot over I guess, because your platform's changed from where it was ideated to where it is now. How would you say your goals and vision for the future are versus where they were?
Ooh. Well, when we kicked things off, like I say, it just was a thing to help get us a graduate job. And we never really had a grand vision. I guess when we started it, it was sort of a dot-com boom had just happened. So we had visions of let's build a website and sell it for millions, and then we'll live on yachts and stuff. That was kind of the student dream.
Yeah.
It doesn't really happen like that. But going through that process and trying to work out actually what are our plans for this, because we didn't know really what we intended to do with it. We just followed our nose. We knew if we were going to deliver for clients, help our stakeholders like universities and add value to them, and students are getting jobs and loving our support, all our 3 key stakeholders are happy, and each one of them starts growing. So therefore you have more opportunities. You think about bringing more people into the team, and then you start to just, I guess for me, it was just building our business to a level of how far can it go?
Are you kind of top level decisions, or do you have projects, or? Like, what do you do day to day?
What do I do day to day?
Yeah.
It changes loads. So last year I was maternity cover. So I just jumped back into being commercial director, so heading up the sales team and working with them and all the clients, which is what I started doing. Because there was, I say 4 of us that started it, but 3 of us that really took it forward, we all had very different skill sets. And it's, because we were so young, it was imperative that we worked as a 3, because none of us had built a business before. None of us really knew how it was going to work. Every decision we had to make was difficult because you hadn't made it before. And you don't know what the right answer is. You haven't got an instinct to trust yet. You've just got some thoughts. So having 3 meant you could bounce ideas off each other, come together and go, right, okay, that feels to me like a better decision to go down that route. And it was almost that reassurance, being able to chat through it with the rest.
Yeah,
that
sounding
gave us
board.
the ability to actually move forward. Otherwise you end up a bit paralysed by not really knowing what to do and, like I say, no instincts to trust.
So would you recommend potentially, like, for student entrepreneurs who might be thinking about this as not this, but, this kind of entrepreneurship route, do you think, like, what's your experience versus how you would have thought it would have gone if it was just you going into it?
Oh, if it was just me, I don't know what happened. I mainly focus on like sales and marketing. I work with finance now, but I didn't at the time. So you've got to have quite a good grasp on lots of different areas.
Yeah, more well-rounded.
Yeah, so you either bring that in, but then you've got to pay people to do that. Whereas if you actually start a business with people, you don't necessarily have to pay them because you're all in it together. And we had the same amount of equity. So it took us a good, I'm going to say, since we launched the website as we graduated, it took us maybe 2 years to actually take any money out of the business in terms of a wage. Just because you're small, you're growing, you don't quite know what you're doing. And it took us a long time because we wanted to invest all the money we were making into marketing to keep growing the brand.
Yeah. Have you ever had any, like, team hiccups?
Team hiccups?
Like, and what would you, because I know that that's probably a concern, like, how do I pick the perfect business partner? Like, how would you say, do you have any tips, I guess, in picking complementary people to yourself?
You've got to find people you can trust. Fortunately, we were all good mates. We're all in Telford together. We all went on placement together. And it was just that we know we had that bond, and our relationship has always been friends, but we've kind of always had the business at the same time. So we can switch quite quickly between business chat, friend chat. It just happens. So that's very fortunate. I think if you're looking to find someone, I think that's a really wise option. I wouldn't necessarily think it would stop me doing it on my own, but I think actually trying to find someone with complementary skills that shares the workload, if anything, because even now, there's 2 of us that run it together now, because we started a separate company and the other co-founder went off and did that. So the 2 of us now, we still split the business almost in half. So he'll look after the other half and I'll look after the media business. And it just means that there's half the amount of people to look after. It's half the decisions to think about. Whereas he can specialise in the execution of campaigns. I can look at like how we sell those campaigns, how we market the campaigns. So everything is divided and it does help.
That's awesome. And what would you say is like the biggest thing that you've learned? Like if you looked at Ollie when you first started versus now, like what would you say is the biggest change in yourself?
I mean, I was an idiot at uni. To think I was running a business now would be a bit crazy, really. The biggest change, I'd say, is moving from having fun and enjoying what you do, which I think is so important, not only when you're setting up with friends, but when you start getting staff and people in. Like we've always had a student culture which has gone along with us as in our lives, I guess. So even when we graduated, we still wanted to have fun, and it was a very sociable atmosphere. So balancing that kind of sociable fun, we're all having a good time, with actually switch on here, we need to make some important decisions, or we need to meet some massive clients here. That's the thing I learned, to try and work out when am I relaxed and enjoying myself, or when do I actually need to turn it on and be a bit more sensible.
And do you still struggle with that? Like, because obviously when it's your business, it's your baby. Like, how do you know when to say, right, that's enough for today and I'm going to do it tomorrow?
Where the first 3 or 5 years, we didn't switch off. You could argue I still don't, but because it was so new, that was my life. It was just every bit of energy I put was into driving it, growing it, and we didn't have I still think one thing I always had in the back of my mind is, if I don't make this happen, it could fall apart. Which is quite negative thinking, but it actually drove really great behaviours in myself to be getting up at 6 in the morning. If you need to go out and do something socially with friends, you can. But when you're off, are you going to sit there and watch the football or just veg on the sofa, or are you just going to get the laptop out and actually just do a couple of hours of work? So the first few years, it really drove me to be really on it to make sure we could build what would be a really sustainable, effective business. Awesome.
And going back to like when you first set up, then obviously it's like you said, it's like tech business, and that obviously comes at a large cost. Did you guys have help with funding? Did you where did you go to kind of start and set up?
Yeah, so the business plan, which I mentioned, that was the catalyst to actually allowing us to build a website. So we put a bit of money in ourselves, but a couple of £100. But the £1,500 we got from the business plan competition, that actually paid for a web designer to actually design, build and create version 1 of Rate by Placement. I mentioned that we were sort of testing the model and understanding how our stakeholders work for a few years. It was maybe 2.5 years after that, we then started thinking, well, we've got an opportunity here because we've got a great business. We've just met Peter Jones from Dragon's Den, who gave us some amazing feedback. He just said, look, you've got graduate jobs here, you've got this wonderful project in evenings and weekends, but you can't do both forever. And as much as you might love both, you're doing 2 jobs badly rather than really nailing one of them. And he said, look, you've got an amazing idea. If you really believe in this, back yourselves. So 2 weeks later, after hearing that, we both put our graduate jobs aside, and we were working just non-stop on Rate by Placement. So it was that time where we started investing more of our time and resource into it. The more we were doing that, we were more treating it more seriously because it was scary. We didn't really have we had about £3,000 in the bank from our graduate jobs and no income from Rate by Placement. So we knew we had a runway of like 6 to 8 to 12 months living at home to make this work. And it really forced us to think about actually how we grow. And at a similar time, we got introduced and recommended like a chairman investor who was fantastic and almost brought that bit of grey hair, worked with loads of companies before, could help steer us. And he gave us 2 options. One was, you've got a lovely business and you can sit in your back bedrooms, in your pants, forever doing this, and it'd be great. You have a good time. Or we can put some money in, we can try and give it some oomph. We'll get an office, we'll get first staff, we'll be able to spend more on marketing, we'll grow the business, we'll grow the top line. And it was that challenge he gave us that meant, well, obviously we want to do that. Like, let's test it, let's see how far it can go.
How do you keep on track in terms of your missions and goals? Like, do you have quarterly reviews, and is that something that comes from you, or do you listen to like the whole staff population? Like, do you find that interesting and changing your views?
Yeah. So each month we'll do a business update to the team, and that will be the usual like key performance indicators, like how we track into various numbers. That's really important because you need to know where you're at. We're in a very cyclical market, which means it's very seasonal. So students go onto campus in September, come off for Christmas, go back, and they come out from the summer. So we know by and large how the website traffic's going to follow the same pattern, when we're going to get sign-ups, because you have lots of careers fairs at the start. So all these sort of things come together. Once you understand and can flesh out actually what are the things that are most important to you, the ones that make you tick, tracking them, making sure you're on top of them, it allows you to make sure that you're not leaving it too long to, oh, God, we're well behind on this, that's rubbish. You can actually go, okay, right, we are tracking well there, that's important. Can we invest more in there? That's looking good. And doing that on a monthly basis is really helpful because it allows you to crack on with the day-to-day, but it also grounds you every month just to check in. Are there any problems? And it took us a while to use this, but I actually got it from sitting on the University Council at Loughborough. Is just a traffic light system of, is it good, it's green. If it's crap, it's red. And if it's in the middle, it's amber. But having that as really basic levels of metrics, if you've got quite a few KPIs to look at on different products, it's actually easier to see it in colours.
Yeah.
Because you can go, right, the greens we're happy with, that's awesome. Let's actually really get to the bottom of these reds and why is that happening? What's happened? What's changed in the market? Have we done anything differently ourselves? And it allows you to then invest more in the bits that are growing, whilst also really identifying the problems. I
think students can take that into like their lives as well as like actionable things, like even just down to understandings of modules. You know, like I'm red on this, I completely don't understand it, and it allows you to essentially like reprioritize.
Yeah.
So I think that's really useful. What would you say the future holds for you and your business? Like, where do you see growth over the next 5 years, let's say?
It's a very, very good question. So we're just carrying on. It sounds really weird to answer this, but we're just carrying doing what we're doing. Because if we do that every year and you focus on, tomorrow, the next year, we know we're going to be in a better position in a year's time. That's, I think, just natural to us and how we like to do things because we know that that's worked. Don't think that's the most inspirational vision that I could share with everyone. So what we are trying to do now to couple that is to actually get people bought in to be like, where do we want to be in 2025, but also in 2030? Mm-hmm. So have we got a certain target to be at, right, revenue-wise, profit-wise? The goal to getting there then allows you to work backwards from that end goal.
Yeah.
Because you can think, actually, so organically, we can see our growth doing this. What do we need is there a gap? So with what we've done, we've identified that organically we can keep growing, but there's going to be a little gap there. So we either need to like merge or buy a company, or we need to create a new product. Like we need to make a difference there. But we only got there by actually having a long-term goal that we'd all be happy with, hitting in 2030, and actually then working backwards from that.
And keeping it, I guess, realistic as well, because it's all well and good being like, we're going to be like, the bread and butter of the world. But like, it's not, I think sometimes it can be worse to like overshoot and then under-deliver. Do you ever have any, I guess, day-to-day as well, like how do you set workload so that you feel productive enough without burning yourself out?
Never worked that one out, sorry.
Still a journey.
I don't think you can. I just think I would always work just as much as I can, and I think one thing we've always been very good at is we don't have like different offices for the founders and the rest of the team sit here. Like we're all sat together. Like I'm as much of a worker bee as everyone else is. So I see myself right in the mixer making that happen. And I think a lot of the team get that energy and realisation that actually they really care about this business, they really care about us, they want to help us grow. And you build a much better relationship with the team that you have if you are supporting them as best you can and you're giving them as much time, you're not just ignoring them. That doesn't make any sense.
So how big is your team overall?
So we are 75 people. We've got offices in Brixton in South London.
Near me, near my roots. That's nice. Okay, awesome. Wow, so that must have grown a lot over the years.
Yeah.
So like, are you still like literally every day employing more people? Or have you kind of hit a point where you're happy with your company size in terms of staff?
Yeah. You start looking at metrics like revenue per head and cost per head when you start doing that. But we know we're more of a service business because we have to deliver things for clients, and that takes time and effort and people. So whilst we're primarily a tech business, we've got websites, we've got like microsites, but we do like doing things on campus. So we do deliver services of all sorts to clients. That does require people's efforts. To be able to do that, I think one of the best things we've learnt is to try and challenge ourselves, but grow manageably. Like if we try to double our business today, it'll be absolute madness. because we wouldn't have enough people to deliver it. It would be stressing all the current processes. Clients would have a bad service, probably wouldn't come back. It's not a great business in a year's time.
Yeah.
So we've found that actually doing 10 to 20% every year is really manageable because you can bring in new people.
Yeah.
There's naturally going to be some leavers, so you can bring some new people in, upskill them, educate them. But it's so hard to push it beyond that because it just stresses so many different areas and pushes you outside. Being pushed is good outside your comfort zone, but when you get pushed constantly and things start to drop because you've not got enough time and energy to focus on actually just making it work, that doesn't work. So we've always really favoured the sort of 10 to 20% and carry on like that. And we've gone from, we made 14 grand in our first year, and we'll do just shy of 7 million this year.
Wow. It's possible, guys. It's possible. Okay, wow. So what would you say overall over the last, however long since setting up your business, what's been your favourite part? And then I guess what's been the worst part or the hardest part? Maybe we start with the bad bit and we'll finish, we'll end on a more positive note.
I had an answer for the good bit. The good bit, I'd say, I loved it in the early days.
Yeah.
It's not to say I don't love it now because it's wonderful, and our lives are very different now than they were early on. But I always look back on fondness of us being in back bedroom at home, just with a laptop, on my mobile, and a book, and I was literally just searching company on the internet, calling them up, chatting about what we're doing, sending them firing off emails, speaking to universities, going around all the unis to chat to them. So all that kind of setup I loved because it was so new and different.
Yeah.
And you'd meet lots of people and you'd get a lot of feedback about what you're doing that's great, what you're not doing that's pretty crap that you can change. And you were really living and breathing absolutely every part of the business. So I really look back on fondness there, but I don't want to do it now. So what do I not enjoy? What I've not enjoyed as much?
Or what's the most challenging
The
part?
challenging for me is just the boring conversations. Trying to work out legal stuff, or if there's any IT security stuff. I find that stuff really quite draining, just because that's not where my passion lies or my skill set lies.
Yeah.
But you have to be involved and you have to have an opinion on what do we do here? And I don't know. I really don't know. So I find that quite difficult.
Okay. And I guess to close, I would love to hear any advice you have to students who thinking about taking the plunge, or kind of it's a consideration going into becoming an entrepreneur. And I guess entrepreneur can come in many stages, but maybe setting up a business as a side hustle or going full into it after graduating, or just basically any advice on your journey and kind of things you've learnt along the way.
I'd say just do it. It sounds really corny to say it, but just give it a go. If you are nervous of giving it a go for whatever reason, then maybe give yourself a time frame and say, as of this date, I'm going to give myself 6 months, 12 months, 18 months to really give it a go and give it all that focus. Because even if it doesn't work out, at least you've given it your all and you've given it a chance. And if it does, then you're obviously flying and you made the right decision. But as a student, there's no better time to be starting a business. You haven't got a mortgage, kids to think about. Okay, there's maybe some debt from university to think about, but in terms of other life stuff going on, you've got a lot more free time and freedom to really put your all into it.
That's amazing. And thank you so much for your time today. I really, really appreciate you coming on. It's been a really interesting approach to the podcast, because I think you're probably a bit further on down the pipeline than where some of our students have literally been they're going to graduate this year. So it's been really, really interesting having that as an approach as well. So I just want to say thank you so much for giving up your time to help out. It's been really appreciated.
Oh, pleasure. Thank you. And anything to help other Loughborough students. Don't you worry.
Thank you. That's it.
Great.